Alright guys, so in the last video we created our controllers and we added our data structure or state of our application. Now what I want to do is fetch this data here, these items, and put them into our application. Now these are ultimately going to come from local storage, but for now they're just going to start out here with this hard-coded data. Okay, and of course you could you could take this application and upgrade it to actually fetch data from an outside API. That's something I may look into later on when updating the course. The data can come from anywhere. So let's go ahead and create a public method in our item controller called getItems. Okay, so we'll say getItems function. Make sure you put a comma there. And all we're doing is returning data.items. Okay, that's all we're doing here. So we could actually now call this in the browser. We could say item controller dot get items. Did I save that? No, I didn't save it. And we can get our items. Okay. So this get items, we obviously want this to load when the application initializes, right? So we're going to go down to the init down here, and we want to call that. Now we're going to put the result of that into a variable. Okay, so we're going to say const items equals item controller dot get items. Okay, so now if we console.log items, you can see that we're getting those items. Okay, now remember the UI controller is what's going to take care of anything to do with the user interface, and populating this list right here, this UL with our items, that's a function of the UI controller. So what we want to do now is take the items that we got from the item controller. Actually, let's put some comments in here. We'll say fetch items from, we'll just say from data structure. So we're fetching them. We don't need this anymore. And then we want to populate list with items. Okay. So we're going to have a UI controller function or method called populate item list. Okay, and then we're going to pass in the items that we fetched with the item controller. So let's go up. Let's go up to our UI controller, and we're going to have populate items list. Okay, function. Remember, it's going to take in those items. And then what we're going to do is we're going to have to loop through the items, and we're going to have to make each one into a list item and then insert it into the UL. All right, so I'm going to define a variable called HTML. I'm going to set it to nothing. I'm just going to initialize it to nothing. And then we're going to take those items and we're going to loop through them with a for each. Okay, we've used this before. Remember, a for each actually takes in a callback function, and we can put an identifier here. I'm just going to use item. And then let's take that HTML variable and let's append to it. So we can append with plus equals. And then instead of doing the old concatenating ES5 way, we're going to use template strings so that we can put variables right inside of here. Okay, so we're going to have a list item. And remember, we want the list item to have an ID, which will be, let's see, we're going to say list item ID, and that ID is going to be item dash and then the actual ID of the item. So if we look up here, you can see we have IDs for each one of these. So that'll be a variable. So we're going to go right here and use our money sign curly braces, which is how we can use variables inside of template strings. And we're going to say item.id. Okay. Now this is also going to have a class. So this li right here, let's close it. So we'll have a class of collection item. Actually, you know what I'm going to do is just copy from index.html. We're just going to copy one of these LIs. We'll just paste that in like that, and let's just again replace this with the variable item.id. Okay, now the name, we'll replace that item.name. Calories, so we just want to replace the number. Okay, the calorie, it's only going to hold the number. The calories is going to be hard coded, the text. So here we're going to say item.calories. Okay, and then that should do it. Actually, you know what, the I class right here, the icon, should also have a class of edit item. I forgot to put that in. I'm actually going to add that to the HTML as well, just so this is consistent. We're not actually using this markup, but I want it to be correct. All right. So that is our HTML. So each time this loops through, it's an li will be added to this variable, to this HTML variable. So what we need to do next is take all of these LIs and put them into the UL inside of our application. So the way that we do that, let's see, we want to go right here, I believe. Hold on. This is where the bracket colorizer comes in handy. So we want to go under the for each. Yeah, so right here. And let's put a comment. We'll say insert list items. So document dot, I'm going to use query selector. Okay, and it's an ID of, let's just check it out. So it's a UL with an ID of item list. Item dash list. And then we want to do dot inner HTML equals that HTML variable that we created. Okay, can close that up. So if we save that, now you can see that the data is actually being added. Okay, so just to reiterate what's going on, it's getting the app's being initialized right here. This is the starting point. We're getting the items from the item controller. We're putting them into a variable. Then we're calling populate item list from the UI controller, where we're passing those items in. And then in populate item list, we're looping through those items, and we're adding an li to this, or we're appending an li to this HTML variable through each iteration. And then finally, we're taking that HTML variable and sticking it into the UL. Okay. Now, there's one thing we need to do here, and that is with this item list, this could be changed at any time. And we don't want to have to go all around our JavaScript and change it each individual one. So what I want to do is create a object called UI selectors, and any class or ID or anything like that that we're going to use inside of a selector, I want to put inside of there. All right, so it's going to be in the UI controller. So we're going to go right here and say const UI selectors, which is going to be an object, and we're going to call this one item list, and we're going to set it to the ID item dash list. All right, and then that way we can go down here and replace this with UI selectors dot item list. All right, save it, should work the same way. All right, so now if for some reason this UL gets changed, this ID, we can just update it in this one place, and it'll update all around the application. All right, so it makes our code more efficient as well as more scalable. So now that we have our items, our meal items, in our list, what I want to do next is work on being able to add a meal item with the calories to our list. All right, so we'll get into that in the next video.